Well, hello friends. My name is Carrie. I'm an avid crafter and I'm so excited to share with you today a quick tutorial about making a window bottle. I'm excited to see what y'all come up with and hopefully you can make these your own. I found this on a YouTube channel, could not tell you when or where. A while back, this gal had made one not really quite similar to mine. She used a different style of bottle and different techniques and some different things, but it was beautiful and I loved it and I loved the concept of it and I thought it was so cool. So I had to recreate something like it. I found the best bottle that I like so far is a Fireball bottle. They're nice and flat, they're round, right? They kind of give you that good canvas to work with and they're pretty decent sized. I am not a big drinker to start with, but definitely not of cinnamon whiskey. And I put out feelers on Facebook, just if anybody had any empties, I would take them off their hands. And I actually may have had one or two in my stash. Honestly, I'm a collector of all things, and so I had quite the bottle stash. But they worked well, so I put out feelers for some more, and this bartender messaged me, and she goes, yeah, hey, we sell a ton of that at work. I'll save you some. I ended up with a case of them in a span of like 2 weeks. So it's pretty easy to come by Fireball bottles, thank goodness. So what I do to remove the labels is just I'll soak them in hot water and like Dawn dish soap for a while, and then use a straight edge and Goo Gone to get rid of the labels themselves. Once you're left with a canvas kind of like this, right, an empty clear bottle, then you have something pretty easy to work with. This one is not totally prepped. It still has kind of sticky residue that I would use Goo Gone on and Windex to take off the Goo Gone and clean up any fingerprints, things like that. But beautiful canvas to work with and like I said, a good size. And so for the pictures themselves, I tend to gravitate towards like a scrapbook type paper. I've used tissue paper. I really don't have a preference per se. I do like the picture side of things a little bit more. So something with some character to it. I like the antique-y kind of stuff. Really like the compass and the maps and different things like that. Just kind of show some character in the back of the bottle, right? Give it kind of that flair. So antique look is kind of popular. I have a lot of it in my home, so that's typically what I gravitate towards. But you want to cut out a piece of scrapbook paper to fit the bottle, and I kind of use this little line on the top here as my guide for where to stop with my photo, and I will fill in the whole back of the bottle with that picture. So using that line as a guide, and then I want the photo to wrap about halfway around each side for the picture itself. So if you look at this from any angle when it's painted and there's a window in it, or you can see through the window, you'll see the photo itself, right? So to adhere this, I am a big fan of the matte Mod Podge. The gloss is just a little too glossy for me. Pick this up obviously at Hobby Lobby. I do know they sell some varieties at Walmart. I'm not exactly sure what they have these days, but that's my Mod Podge. That's my go-to. So I will paint on the glass jar itself or the glass bottle itself and the photo and stick that on there, making sure to go along the edges and make sure that these are nice and flat, right? You really want your edges to be very, very flat. The bottom is going to wrinkle a little bit just where the bottle rolls, but not a huge deal. You won't see a lot of it depending on how far up you paint your window. So not a big deal, but adhere that on there. And then once that's fully dry on the front or on this front of the picture, then go ahead and paint on another coat of Mod Podge on the back just to seal it. Being careful to only get the picture itself, right? You don't want to paint the Mod Podge on the glass at this time. So paint the Mod Podge over it. Once that is completely dry, then I take a chalk paint, and I'm a fan of Waverly. This is a Walmart brand. I like it. It's thick, it's matte, does what I need it to do. So, and it comes in a good variety of colors. Truffle is probably one of my favorites that I use quite a bit. It's kind of a brownish, dark brown color. I do use this quite a bit, furniture and some different things. So once I have my picture adhered to the back of it and it's Mod Podge, and if you get any Mod Podge on the jar or the glass itself, just scrape it off with like a straight edge. Reason being, once you paint over it, you'll be able to see it. So you want to make sure that there's nothing besides what you've Mod Podged in this picture on your jar. So I will typically take a straight edge and like clean up all the edges around the photo itself just before I paint it to so you can't see anything like that through the window that you're going to leave in the paint. So paint the back, paint over the picture, kind of will finish off the back for you, paint the neck, all that good stuff, come around the sides here. And then on the front, you can tape off a window if you want to, or you can eyeball it. I typically eyeball it, depending on how accurate I'm feeling, and just kind of leaving that straight picture or that straight like window into the bottle, right? And it is entirely up to you how big of a window you want to leave. If I'm putting something in the bottom of the bottle, I will only paint up a little ways just so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Like the one that has the sand in the bottom with the seashells, I only painted a little bit up, but typically I'll put like a pretty good lip on it for the window at the bottom and then around each side. So it just kind of gives it that viewing hole to see what you've put behind the glass. So once you've painted that, it typically takes a couple of coats of paint to cover it completely and well. You will want to, well, it's up to you. So at that point, you can add another coat of Mod Podge and just be finished with it, right? And then decorate it however you want. Or what I like to do is add another color. So I'll go over my base color with another color. I like metallics. I'm a big fan of like metallic coppers and golds, and I'll sponge them on there with a dabber or a dry sponge, or brush them on there, kind of like not being super careful and covering in different areas so you still kind of see the other base color popping through. Or I'll use another color of chalk paint and dry brush it. That's one of my other favorite techniques. I'm going to show you that actually here in a second. So if you've never heard of dry brushing, it's a really fun way to add some character to your piece. So once I have all of my paint on there that I want to use, I've also done some stuff where I've done like multiple colors of paint to where they look like this. And again, kind of gives it more depth and character and just adds a little bit more to it. This was Mod Podge, so I Mod Podged this onto an old bottle and used some different painting techniques on the back here to kind of give it, again, that more rustic antique look and make it look older. So this was just a clear jar to start with. So yeah, so definitely some different ways to add character to it if you want to. If you feel like the picture is very busy, you probably don't add a ton of character to the bottle itself to distract from the picture. But if the picture is a little bit more muted like this and kind of monotone, which I typically kind of gravitate towards, I don't know why. I guess I did one with flowers, right? So not always. But gives it that, yeah, a little bit more of interest. So you've got your picture on there, you've got everything painted, you've got your nice window, you've Mod Podged over it as a sealant. And for the sealing part of Mod Podging, I like the matte finish again. I will use that depending on what I use over it. Like if I use a copper color over the top of the chalk paint, I might use the gloss just to finish it. But I am usually a fan of the matte Mod Podge, or I also like this hard coat Mod Podge. This stuff is great. I don't know what's different about it necessarily, but I really like it for finishing off stuff that you need to wipe off easily. And so if projects like this ever get dusty, right, if they're going to be displayed and they get dusty, they're pretty easy to clean with the hard coat. I'm sure they are with matte finish too. I don't know. I like the hard coat. So that's me. Use whatever you have available, whatever you're comfortable with. Obviously, that is perfectly cool too. So Mod Podged it, then it is time to decorate, which is my favorite time. So I will use a ribbon. I like the ribbon with the pearls in it to go around the window itself. I'll just hot glue those on there. And so when I'm painting the lines, like I'm not super picky if they're super perfect because I'm going to cover them up anyway with some type of ribbon usually. And then adding flowers or little trinkets or different things like that. The beach one that I did was the first one that I added anything to the inside of the bottle, and I just poured in some sand and then stuck a couple of shells in the bottom and moved them around with like a long straw, I think it was, to get them positioned. So pretty fun. And then adding, you know, decor to the top, like just kind of giving it that little crafting pizzazz. And then on those guys that I did, I also added these little fairy lights. These I got, I believe, from Amazon. They are a cork attached to a string of lights, and you turn them on with the back of the cork, and that's what gets your lights going. And you just stick them down inside the bottle, and you can see the window, or see through the window a little bit better to see your picture. It kind of illuminates the picture, gives it that nice, pretty, and you can see what it is, and lights make everything better anyway. So there's that. So that's the bottle itself. But did also want to show you this super fun dry brushing technique. So I found out about this from a couple of the furniture painters I think that I follow on different things. Like I paint quite a bit of furniture, have painted quite a bit of furniture too. And this is one of the techniques I use to, again, kind of add character to things, right? It's such a fun technique. And so this is one that I did with a brown over the green, just to kind of give it a little bit more depth. And this is, and I'm not super picky about dry brushing. You don't have to be, which is the beauty of it. You can kind of not be perfect at it at all, and it still looks good. So that's probably why it's one of my favorite techniques. This is a multiple dry brush piece. I actually used multiple colors on this, and then I even used this like patina looking paint. I don't remember exactly what it was called. It was like a kit that gave it a texture too, and just really fun to add some character and different things. And then they make an antique Mod Podge that's like this amber color, I guess. So it adds a little bit of antiqueness to your piece. I don't think that's a word. But can also use that to cover up some things that you want to look more aged too. So I have used the antique Mod Podge quite a bit too. But yeah, so it gives a little bit of character. And then this is just a straight one color dry brush. So I did this piece with Mod Podge as well, tissue paper, and this is a transfer for a Christmas gift, and did a base coat of white and then dry brushed with the brown over the top of it, and then Mod Podged it to seal it. So you can see that dry brushing just kind of gives it a little bit more depth and pulls out some of the imperfections, which I love. I don't know. I'm not all about shiny and perfect. I think imperfections are pretty fun, and just kind of gives it that little character. Oh, one note before I forget. So I was going to tell you, on the bottom of this bottle, what I will typically do, you can paint it if you want to, by all means. If you're going to keep it, go ahead. But I have found that like if you paint these and you set them on your furniture, it may or may not rub off on your furniture. So my favorite way of finishing bottles is to put a layer, I'll cut a layer of felt and glue it on the bottom as a finish. And if you buy the jewelry felt, right, that you use to make jewelry boxes, it already has sticky paper on the back of it. You can just peel off the sticky paper, stick it on there. I think they're the same color as the felt. I'll have to look because I've used it on other stuff other than bottles. But you will see the bottom of the bottle a little bit through the window. So you kind of want to make it the same color as your paint, or like black, or like a neutral color that you won't really notice. But felt tends to protect things a little bit better. And so I will just cut it to match, and then it kind of helps to keep the light inside the bottle if you choose to add fairy lights. So one note on that. All right, let's dry brush because it's fun. So this is a bottle. I have all these old bottles that I acquired that I had painted already. I'm still not exactly sure what I'm going to do with them. I don't know if it offends anybody to paint old bottles. I'm sorry. They're way prettier to me painted than not. So this is what I do. Somebody somewhere may not be okay with that there are these antique bottles, but I apologize. Yeah, so it has obviously these words on it, right? They're just kind of fun. So I think it'll showcase dry brushing really nicely. But to do this, you just take any color of contrasting paint. It doesn't matter. You could pick teal, you could pick white, you could pick brown, you could pick black. Really, it's entirely up to you. You're just going to dip your paintbrush in there a little bit, right, and rub it off on the side so that it comes up the brush about halfway. And then you are actually going to rub it over a paper towel, and rub off most of the paint. And it's important that you start with a dry brush. So it's called a dry brush technique for a reason. It's not, if you use a wet brush, you're not going to get the same effect, unfortunately, which I have done a few times. But a dry brush will help immensely. And so you don't want your brush super loaded. So you want it fairly dry to where if you paint your fingertip, it's not going to leave any paint there, or a little bit. And then you get to do the fun part. So again, I'm not super picky about my dry brushing, but what it will do is it will really make your details pull and pop. So I went over those letters and now you can really see them. And so I'm, again, sorry, I have my phone rigged kind of funky here, so if I'm out of frame, I apologize. But yeah, just go over this and have fun with it. And if you want it a little bit thicker, you can load your brush a little bit more, but I found kind of add layers at a time is a good rule of thumb, just so you're not having to go back over it with your original paint color, which is totally doable as well. But just gives it a little bit of that extra. And so I use this a lot on a lot of my different projects just to add to them. But that's it. That's dry brushing. Pretty simple. I use it on frames or on ornate frames. I use it on wood projects. Give it a little bit of, character, right? I like character. So that's dry brushing. You could do that with your bottle, whatever bottle type that you choose. You would want to do it on the round parts and around the top, and it'll really kind of pop when you get up into this area with all of this texture up here. If you dry brush over that, it's really going to pull out some of that detail, and any of your brush strokes, it'll pull that out too, which I think is super cool. But if you like a little more finished look, then probably want to avoid dry brushing. So yeah, that's it, y'all. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. I hope this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, like I said, please leave me a comment, and hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and hope to see you in the next round, right? Show me your projects, please. Thanks. Have a good one.